Hey there, guys. Today we are talking about the analyzing metaphor assignment on the choice board. And for this, we're using a microfiction piece called The Swan as Metaphor for Love. So you may have seen this or even done this for the first semester of English class. This one is one that Mr. Bush and I assigned to be able to look at metaphor and understand metaphor a little bit better because this piece really shows off metaphor really well. And it tells you loud and clear what it is in the beginning. The swan is a metaphor, and it is a metaphor for love. So, what you're going to be doing with this piece is figuring out how is the swan a metaphor for love? What is she saying about love when it comes to this? And the number one thing you need to do here is read the text. Because, yes, the swan has been a metaphor for love for many, 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 many eons. It's a big old cliche. But she puts a different spin on it in her piece. So you don't want to think that she's just going with the classic way because that exists. No, she put a spin on it. And so you want to make sure that you're aware of that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to read this out loud for you to where any student that needs to hear it out loud can hear it out loud. And then we're going to go through the questions just a little bit to help you guys out. The Swan as Metaphor for Love by Amelia Gray. A swan's foot, like a duck's, is a webbed claw. In traversing swan shit and mud, the claws gunk up and reek. Nobody in the history of the world, save another swan, has licked a swan foot while that foot was still attached to the swan. The feet resemble rabid bats in their sickly color and texture. Moving north on the swan's undercarriage, one will find an eroded civilization of swan shit and pond scum. This is a banal phrase, pond scum, one that is easily ignored, but look closer. Take a more personal approach. Swans eat grasses, sedges, and pondweed, each teeming with murk. The birds will also eat insects, snails, and fresh shrimp if they're near one. Pond scum is more of the same. Swan shit, fish shit, frog shit, half a can of beer poured out by some fuck teenager, plastic photosynthetic residue, algae, permanent bubble, hexagon patch freed from its soccer ball, anthropod corpse, all attached to the swan and its idiot float in its stagnant little inland sea. Swans eat tadpoles. A swan will slurp up entire schools of larval amphibians, process them, and shit them out. And sometimes it will sit in the shit or walk through it, and here we are. Anyone who claims that a swan is a majestic and noble creature has never seen a swan up close or smelled its bacterial purge. Swans will attack you if you are nearing their young or their nest, if you are trying to have a conversation with their mate. They have jagged points on their beak, which resemble teeth, but more closely resemble a plumber's saw, which plumbers call a tiny Tim. If you try and take a swan's picture, he will strike you with his beak. Too much attention enrages a swan. The swan has a long neck and will strike at you. The swan will bite you and tear at your flesh. Swans mate for life, which is maybe 10 or 15 years. Someone found a swan once that was 24 years old, and probably it was mating for life, which everyone made a big deal out of, even though the swan was not even old enough to rent a car. The swan wasn't old enough to silently hyperventilate in bed. The swan didn't have a bed. The swan was too stupid to have a bed, and if it did, it would fill the bed with swan shit. That's all today about swans. Okay, so what I want you to do with that piece is be able to understand exactly what the swans mean for her and what type of love, so to speak, the swans represent for her. So what you're going to do is you are going to find quotes from the story in which the swan is being compared to love. Okay, which is basically proving that the swan is a metaphor for love. You're going to prove that the swan is a metaphor for love. So find a quote, and you're going to put it in the box right here. I'm going to fill this box with gray to where you know that you don't have to put anything right there. But the box underneath, you are going to get a quote from the story and paste it in there. Whatever quote you get, you're going to explain how that quote is being compared to love, how the swan is being compared to love in that quote. So if you say that swan's mate for life, which is maybe 10 or 15 years, what you have to explain is what does that say about love? What does that say about love? Is love really a mating for life type thing? Is that what we see here by saying 10 or 15 years? Is that a full lifetime? Or is it something different? You can think about anything to do with this. So that's kind of an example one that you can take. But then what else do we get about love? Then what you're going to do after analyzing those, you're going to think about, what does the author say about love? Altogether, if we take those 3 quotes that you got and you're looking at their meaning, what does she really believe about love? What is it? How does she feel about love? Is it a positive or a negative thing? Does she trust that love will ever be strong enough to keep someone loyal? What do you think based off of what you found? So you should be able to back this up with what you found in the text. I should be able to see, oh, this makes sense because this makes sense, right? And then what you're going to do in the last one is you're going to combine the two of those to be able to make a big paragraph about what you believe she is saying about love in this story. So you're going to use a quote from the text, use one of the quotes that you recorded above, and you're going to explain how that helps go into her purpose. And you're going to need that to be 5 to 7 sentences. I really want you to think deep about it and be able to use it all really well. You know that you already have one sentence because you're going to have a quote. That's great. That's a good start. But then you have to be able to explain how all of that connects to her purpose in a full paragraph. So that's what we're looking for in this choice board assignment. As usual, if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me a private comment or contact me at any time. I am happy to help. Thanks, guys.